All right, everyone. Whoever loses an election always has qualms about the official tallies, especially if it's particularly close. We've seen plenty of that over the 2016 election, the 2020 election, this election. We've seen it for a long time. This is, by the way, a legitimate concern. The fact that somebody would claim, hey, in this county there was an irregularity, there are too many Trump votes, should be looked into, by the way. What we're hoping for is a completely fair and open election. Not something that's rigged in any direction. It's just not right. That's not the way that a properly functioning country works. I don't think you're going to find a specifically large amount of voter fraud or anything like that. But the most wacky conspiracy theory, and it is that Starlink was used to hack the voting machines to give Donald Trump the edge actually in the election to rig votes for him. It's been pointed out by a number of different independent officials, as well as various states and municipalities, that's not physically possible. Now, if you want to rig the votes, you go there physically and you drop physical ballots. You can't magically make the machine start doing anything else that it can't physically do simply because a satellite is flying overhead. There was one funny picture where a person's like, I tore open a Starlink casing earlier, and Elon Musk has some explaining to do. And like they've soldered on an extra wire to a little like glass container full of like, I guess, Himalayan salt or something, and it says like vote changing crystals or something like that. And it's obvious satire. It was meant to be a joke, sort of satirizing this claim. But it wouldn't be physically possible to remotely connect there using Starlink in the generic sense to actually flip votes. It's not physically possible. You would then also expect to see an aberration with regards to the number of votes, which would be commensurate with whether machines were physically capable of being hooked into the internet in some way. If you have some county that only uses paper ballots and everything is hand counted, unless you are talking about a mind control satellite, I don't think that you would expect the same voting differential. And so what you can do is just simply look at polling. Look at the results. You can do it precinct by precinct if you want to. And if you find that aberration, then that would raise concerns. This is, by the way, what we saw in 2020. Hence the concern. We saw that all of a sudden the polls were being bucked by a significant margin in a singular direction as the result of mass mail-in ballots at the last minute, and it was only in certain locations. Thus, you had a numeric aberration. You also had one with the popular vote. Biden did not get 80 plus million votes, for example. That did not happen. Statistically, that level of anomaly does not make sense. If you then match it up, though, with the voting from 2016, 2012, etc., it's more or less in line. It makes more numeric sense. It would be almost outside of the margin of error, actually, what happened in 2020. So there's a difference between concerns that are legit, like people voting multiple times because they went to different precincts, people voting that are not eligible to vote, they don't have to show photo ID in many states. I would note that most of them are blue states, etc. There are concerns about our election system. You had some pictures of ballots, for example, that had a little tiny black dot on the Kamala Harris box. I can't remember which precinct that was, which would spoil the ballot. If you vote for anyone other than Kamala, the machine may not read it properly. Personally, I think we should have Election Day be a national holiday. Ballots should be on paper, no digital balloting. It should be all hand counted, automatic recount above some arbitrary threshold, then call it. And then, of course, you need voter ID, photo ID in order to vote. Well, it'd be kind of hard to rig an election at that point, because using some secret space, technology to do that wouldn't be feasible in general anyway, especially, again, if you're hand counting everything and everything's on paper ballots, and the role of the electronics is literally just feeding them into the box in order to compile them to be counted. There's no way that any electronic system would be able to hack it. It wouldn't be possible. Like here in the state of Vermont, we have paper ballots. You take the pen, you mark off the little bubbles, and then the only electronic that's there is the feeding machine. It's the little machine on top that pulls your ballot in, confirms that it's actually been successfully deposited in the box, and everything else is just on paper. It's hand counted. which is the way that it should be in the whole country. The only problem is we don't have photo ID here, but it works a little bit easier when you go into the voting center and see 5 or 6 people that can vouch for who you are, which is what happens. It's small town America. It's a little bit different from being in Chicago or something. No, this is outright batshittery, though. They're not thinking about the fact that it's physically impossible for the scenario that they're dreaming up to actually have occurred. Whereas I can point to 2020 and say, mathematically speaking, I can see a statistical anomaly. It's very easy to see. And there were other concerns that were had about that election. You don't really have widespread concerns about this one, except that Trump happened to win because his opponent was a cunt. And then they're dreaming up the idea that Elon Musk stole the election by using, spy satellites, basically. It really makes a lot of sense. By the way, we're the ones that are conspiracy theorists for questioning anything about 2020. But this has to be taken totally seriously. I'm sure that some left-wing network will try to dig up evidence that this is actually physically possible. That would be quite something. That's about all. Peace out.